The overnight crossing of Lake Michigan runs about 4 hours door to door, Ludington, Michigan to Manitowoc, Wisconsin, departing around 2:30 in the morning and docking somewhere near 6:30 if the lake cooperates. I had been working as the radio operator on the SS Cartwright for 11 months, and I could count the interesting nights on one hand. My booth was about the size of a coat closet on the upper deck, all cold fluorescent light and the hum of the engines below. I monitored emergency frequencies, logged passenger requests, relayed weather updates to the bridge. Mostly I just sat there and drank bad coffee. That October night we were carrying 61 passengers and a crew of 22. I know those numbers because I pulled the manifest before we left port. Force of habit from 2 years with the Coast Guard before this job. The lake was running a 2-foot chop, which is nothing, and the forecast was clean all the way across. By the time we were 40 minutes out of Ludington, the only sound in my headset was the steady breathing of an open channel and the occasional check in from the deck crew. I remember looking at my log screen and thinking this was going to be a dead shift. The first call came at 3:47 a.m. A woman in cabin 14 named Mrs. Caldwell said her husband had stepped out to use the restroom about 20 minutes before and had not returned. I entered it in the incident log. Passenger Marcus T. Caldwell unaccounted for since approximately 3:25 a.m. cabin 14. I told her he had probably wandered to the lounge and fallen asleep in one of the chairs, and I told her to call back if he was not back in another 30 minutes. She thanked me. Her voice was calm. I genuinely was not worried. At 4:02, a deck crew member named Phelps radioed in on the exterior channel. He said the seagulls that had been trailing the ferry since departure, he counted about 14 of them, had all banked away at the same moment, like a single organism deciding together. He said he had been working Lake Michigan crossings for 9 years, and he had never seen gulls do that. They do not spook off a ship mid-lake. There is nothing out there to spook off toward. I logged it and told him to keep me posted.
Phelps did not keep me posted because by 4:15, Phelps was not responding to check-ins. I tried his channel 3 times over 5 minutes. Nothing. I notified the bridge, and the first officer said he would send the second deck hand, a man named Ortega, to check on him. At 4:24, Ortega also stopped responding. I was looking at my log and I had 3 open incidents, and that feeling you get when you are trained to recognize patterns kicked in. That cold, specific feeling that is not quite fear yet, but sits right next to it. A kitchen worker named Barnes radioed at 4:29 to say the galley had cleared out. The entire night galley crew, 4 people, had taken a break together and had not come back in 40 minutes. Then Barnes stopped mid-sentence. The channel just went quiet. I sat with my hand on the transmitter and looked at my incident log. Caldwell, cabin 14. Phelps, exterior deck. Ortega, 4 galley crew. Barnes. 8 people unaccounted for in 62 minutes, and the pattern was accelerating. I kept my entries clean and professional. That was all I had left. I called the bridge directly, and the first officer answered. His name was Harlan. We had crossed paths 100 times. He was a deliberate, unflappable man, and I could hear in his voice that something had already gotten to him. He said they had lost radio contact with the engine room at approximately 4:15, and he had sent the third mate to physically check on them. The third mate had not reported back. I asked how many people that was in total. He said 11. We had lost 19 people in under an hour. I filed a distress notification with the Coast Guard station at Ludington. I kept my voice measured, read off the vessel identification number, our GPS coordinates, the count of unresponsive personnel. The dispatcher on the other end started asking the standard clarifying questions, and I was answering them. And then the channel filled with something, not static. I have heard static, interference, equipment failure. This was rhythmic. Slow and rhythmic, like something large and patient holding a receiver and breathing into it. And then the channel closed. Not dropped, closed. I tried 3 other frequencies. I got silence on 2 of them. On the 3rd, I got a voice, distant and oddly flat, reading coordinates that I recognized as ours. Just our coordinates over and over with no inflection at all. I pulled off the headset. I looked at the manifest on my screen. 83 souls on that ferry, including me. I started subtracting the ones I had logged. When I got to the number that was left, I sat with it for a moment. Then I picked up the handset and I left the booth. I logged my own departure at 4 a.m. because logging things was the only stable behavior I had left. The hallway outside my booth was lit by fluorescent strips that hummed at a frequency I had genuinely never noticed in 11 months on that ship. The carpet was the same industrial grey. Everything was exactly the way it always was, except there was nobody in it. A passenger corridor on an overnight crossing should always have stragglers, people pacing, people who cannot sleep. The emptiness had a weight to it that I could feel against my skin. The passenger lounge should have had 6 people in it, at minimum, insomniacs, travelers who got seasick in their cabins, the people who just did not want to be alone in a small room over black water. The lounge was empty. The televisions were on, playing cable news on mute. There were cups of coffee on the low tables, and I reached down and touched one. Still warm, playing cards mid-game on one table. A jacket draped over a chair back. A novel face down to hold the page. Whatever had happened, it had happened faster than people could react. The one chair was knocked back on the floor. A cell phone lay face up on the table beside it, the screen still open to the camera app. Like someone had been about to take a picture of something through the window. I picked it up. The last photo in the camera roll was blurred, taken in a hurry. The black lake outside the glass, and in the window's reflection, something. I looked at it for about 2 seconds. I put the phone back down. Something in my brain refused to let me look at it a second time. That is when I felt it. Not through the radio, not through the air, through the hull. A low vibration in the steel walls of the ship, steady and slow. Something large moving through the water alongside us. I pressed my palm flat against the exterior wall and felt it conducting through the metal into my hand. A rhythm that was wrong in a way I cannot fully articulate. Too slow for machinery, too consistent for weather. Whatever was out there was not passing us. It was matching our speed exactly. I found the first officer on the bridge. He was alone, sitting in the captain's chair with his back to me, staring at the radar display, and for one moment I thought I had someone. I called his name. He did not turn. I came around the chair to face him, and his expression stopped me cold. It was not fear. It was not any emotion I had a name for. His face was the face of a man who had seen something that had bypassed the ordinary human response to fear and landed somewhere far below it. I looked at the radar display. There was the S Cartwright, a small green point in the center of the screen, and surrounding it a mass, an enormous, irregular shape distributed across the water around and beneath the vessel, too large for any reading I knew how to interpret. The first officer spoke without looking away from the screen. He said it had been down there since before we left port. He said it had spent most of the crossing at depth, but around 4 o'clock it had started noticing us. As he said that last word, I watched the mass on the display contract slowly inward until it was concentrated directly beneath our hull. The lights went out. Every light on the bridge, every corridor light visible through the glass, the running lights on the exterior. Total darkness, except for the cold blue, green glow of the instruments. I heard the first officer's chair shift in the dark. I could not see him anymore. And then the emergency channel in my earpiece opened. Not Coast Guard, not crew. Mrs. Caldwell's voice, perfectly calm, exactly as it had been at 3:47. She said they had found her husband. They were all together now, and it was fine. She said it wanted to know how many of us were still up here. My mouth was too dry to answer.
I do not have a complete account of how I reached the emergency life raft station on the stern deck. I have fragments. The feel of the metal stairwell, railing in the dark, the cold air off the lake hitting my face, the sound of the inflation charge firing. Lake Michigan in October is 48 degrees. When I hit the water, it felt like being struck by something solid. I was in that raft for just over 3 hours before a Coast Guard cutter out of Sturgeon Bay pulled me aboard at 7:54 a.m. By then, the SS Cartwright had already docked at Manitowoc on schedule. The dock crew found the vessel fully operational. Engines running, cargo untouched. Coffee still warm on the lounge tables. 82 people had been on that ferry besides me. They found none of them. The investigation is still open.